Hey, what's going on, guys? 118 Set Shadow here. Time for our favorite topic, reprints. Bushiroad has announced some additional reprints in addition to the Perfect Guard reprints they announced before for Festival Collection 2023. And we're starting with some Brandgate options, and we see looks like Bobble Mine is getting a reprint over here, along with Maranorm from Set 2. They are the RE reprint rarity, so that does imply that they might have lower ratios in comparison to other cards that'll be in the festival collection. So even though they're getting another reprint here, which probably translates into 2 reprints for us for Bubble Mine, the chance you'll be able to pull it is probably not that good. We'll see once the news comes out, but historically, from what we've seen, reprint rarities don't have great ratios. But ultimately, Maranorm really didn't need this reprint. You can see that prices of this card are incredibly cheap, and even in the Japanese format, you really don't see play in this, even in Archetype, which is probably the only deck that really might consider this right now. But of course, having a playset in your back pocket's pretty good to have, given that it is generic, so if a format comes up where this card actually becomes very necessary, you're not sitting without them and suddenly seeing these rocket up to like $5 or $10 potentially. Bubble Mine, of course, we're still looking at $20 for its base rarity, and the SP isn't really going to move much on the news. But yeah, for us, having 2 potential reprints could drive this price down in the really, really, really short term right now. So if you happen to see real drop-offs in this below $5, I just pick those up right away, given that we don't know the ratios of the reprint for Festival Collection. And if we end up getting gypped by Bushiroad because we're getting Bobble Mine in set 9, we will... Oh, I really don't think that can happen, especially since it's not a main set, not a core set, but you never know. Now, another topic I want to talk about today are holofoils. An old rarity that goes up until set 5 before we started getting FRs to replace them. Holofoils have been the mid-tier rarity for a number of SP rares that exist in the format, such as Perfect Guards and certain triggers that we have. But there are other cards where it's actually the high rarity of the cards, such as these 3, which you can see are really expensive right now. White Fang Witch Disma, Steam Scaramanigal, Flinty Slasher. These are the high rarities of these particular triggers. They don't have SP rarities, and their valuations are pretty lofty. Listings are also low, so if you've got copies of these, you can put them on the market for a decent price right now. Selfish Engraver is another holofoil that has pretty good value, but with more listings back on the market, it's dropped down from, I'd say, about $7, $8, which it was trading at for a little while. Spiritual Body Condensation is also down in price from what it used to be, but this has an SP printing in set 4, which also contributes to the lower valuation. Nabulum also has an SP, which is why it's lower. Barbizon's the same way. Hollow Moonlit Knight is actually $4, and this is the high rarity of this card, so watch out for that if you are building Orphis. And in general, you have a few other... I talked about Tier Square Sorceress before when this thing was still under $1. Now you can't find it lower than $6. It's generic, you won't see it played that much, but to be fair, it's got good artwork on top of that, so I can see why players want to get rid of this over $5. Darkstrain Dragon, having come off the restriction list, is now $2. Yeah, set 1 has several good holofoils if you want to go look through your bulk and see if you've got any of these. Set 5 is another one that I want to cover because they've got a few expensive holofoils here. The grade 0 variation of Eva is about $10 now. Tekjin, this card is just a generic staple. Plant tokens, not much to say there. Variable Star has dropped off now that Eva doesn't really play this anymore. It was a lot higher. But something that is just way too high right now is Amazement Magician. We've only got one listing left on this card at $20. It sold for $8 and it sold once for $14. I'm pretty sure if you put this up for $10, it would probably sell. We'll see. But Chronojet is playing this a little bit more, and I've talked about it before, it's just a generic soul charge that's also optional. So if you're going to deck yourself out, you don't have to use this skill. Diablos Boy Eden is also running out of listings for the Triple R. We're looking at $15 base right now as we get closer and closer to set 9 when Viamon Spruce comes out. But Japanese builds are playing Eden more often than others, so it's no surprise that this has gone up, while cards like Megan, which had high anticipation, have gone down due to low playability. Over triggers, I want to talk about two of them in particular due to higher pricing. Eldo Breath is about $8, and Dragvedia is about $7+. But in terms of over triggers and their prices, you have to consider when decks would want to trade off their nation overtrigger for the generic one. As a reminder, the generic overtrigger gives 2 of your units 100 million power, so it basically makes 2 of your attacks completely unblockable without a perfect guard. But when it comes to the different nations that might choose to play it, the only nations that really don't consider it at this point are Brandgate and Dragon Empire, which is why these 2 overtriggers are significantly more expensive than the other 3 nations right now. Bless Favor is probably the next one to go after in terms of playability, but when it comes to Cater Sanctuary and Dark States, they may opt to pick the generic overtrigger more often, which is why their prices are lower. Blooming Petal Caraphilius. This card has dropped off from its high points from a few months ago. This card used to sell at about $5 and has dropped off significantly for its holofoil, so if you want holofoil versions of this card, you can pick them up for under $1, and that would actually be pretty good, seeing as since this is a generic soul charger, especially for decks that really burn through their soul, you might want to consider having a playset of these just in case. There are plenty of copies of the rare though, especially considering this is a set 3 card, and set 3 just has lots and lots of printings, which also contributes to how this price has dropped off so much. But also from set 3, Patrol Robo Decker Cops SP has become the only critical trigger at this point to be $100 or above. Cards like Stem Deviate Dragon and Alana, which crossed $100 prior, now have a bunch more listings that have dropped its price pretty drastically back to the 50s and 60s. But Decker Cops are almost out of stock, with only 2 listings left here. So if you have Decker Cop SPs, you can put them on the market for a pretty penny. Shadow Cloak is a generic order support, but it also works with Alchemagic specifically in terms of its second skill. But the idea of this one is to pull orders out of your deck and either put them into the drop if you haven't used them yet, and if you have used them already, then you basically just get a free order to your hand. Overall, this card is $1 right now, so definitely a good pickup at this point. As for the SP, with Zorga's new announcements, it's no surprise that this card has been selling pretty well as of late. All the $6, $7 copies are gone, so we're now looking at least $15 going forward, which honestly is not too surprising for such a generic card that you can play for Stoichia. Trick Moon has seen a drop off in terms of its SP, and a lucky buyer or two were able to find these at $20 to $30 the other day. But now you're looking at the 50s onward if you want to pick up the SP. I imagine we'll probably see a few more listings here and there that keep going lower and lower as Basagra continues to fall out of favor. But in terms of the English format, Set 9 is still around the corner, which could drive prices back up, at least temporarily. Night of Piercing Kadwala has also dropped off for its base rarity, and we've got more listings back on the market, so there's a good amount of stock to be had if you want to pick this up. But of course, this card is significantly higher from its prior $2 to $5 price point, and now you're looking at $10. But again, another generic card to consider, and for Minerva, it's really good to play. As for the foil copy, there are only 4 listings and only 4 copies. But every time this card tries to cross $20, it barely manages to do so and sell. So hopefully that won't be the case and this card will stay in the $20 range. Or I should say in the $10 range, topping at $20. But really depends on just how good Kadwala becomes with future support. Cooling Heart, Eureka, Nostria, Lutetia. Basically, I want to talk about the FFRs of Lyrical Set 3. In particular, because we've got interesting price points when it comes to how some of the boss units have their FFRs, and then you've got the LSRs committing price pressure on these, since these are like the mid-tier rarity for those. But for a lot of other cards like Eureka, Nostria, Nocno, this is the high rarity. So looking at a few prices, when it comes to stuff like Michu Friends, apparently, Roxella's $60. And honestly, I think it has to do more with the artwork than the playability here. Nocno is surprisingly more expensive than Archie, given that I always thought Michu was a lot more popular than Kyoka in terms of magazine support. I mean, Archie doesn't need Kyoka, it just needs you to play magazines. But it's interesting to see the difference in price between these two, where this is a more popular deck overall. Perhaps Kyoka is actually starting to make trends, no pun intended, but we'll see. And then when it comes to other ride lines like Medial, Haraset, and Lilfa, well, of course, the main units have LSR copies, which puts price pressure on the FFRs, and they're really cheap right now. Honestly, Medial is probably one of the bigger favorites in general. $38 is alright for this one, but given that the LSR should be in the high hundreds, well, I'm not really making any case here, I suppose. But when we look at Clanfilet, Elise, and Seatreed, which are high rarities of the specific archetypes here, some of these prices are actually pretty good. Clanfilet is in the 30s. Also only has 3 listings, by the way, so if you need to pick these up, best to pick them up sooner than later. Once these cards get some pretty good support cards to get them up in light, well, that's when we'll probably see some of these prices start to rise up again. Thank you guys for watching today. And I also want to call out before I go, I also have an Instagram which you can access from the description, where I am posting some things here and there. I had a request the other day for a question in regards to timings, like when you should buy into your support. Sooner, later, I couldn't give a clear answer for it, and I intend to make some other videos down the line further talking about this, but in the interim, to kind of answer the question and give some insight into what I do when pricing, I have some Instagram posts put up talking about the different categories that I go through when it comes to how you want to buy your cards and figuring out the best prices. So my Instagram is again in the description below. And thank you again for watching. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. And if you have more requests, just let me know. I will incorporate them into videos, or I will post something on Instagram to better assist you with your questions. I'll see you guys later.